Susan. Welcome to Tea and Games. The tea today is salty caramel pumpkin black. Almost out of this. We'll be switching to another tea soon. I switched in other things. I think last week I may have had hot chocolate. But mostly it's tea, and it will continue to mostly be tea. For those of you who are just tuning in for the tea, I've got some tea that is in the mail, on the way, should have been here today, but is delayed because Christmas time, which neatly brings me to, this is a special holiday gift episode for non-board gamers and board gamers alike, mostly for board gamers though. Okay, let's just get right into it, shall we? For non-board gamers. I've done this a few times. I've actually given board games, actually card games or tabletop little things, to non-board gamers for presents a couple of times. It has not gone well. In both of those cases, despite the fact that I made my selection very, very, very carefully, the games weren't played. So my advice, if you want to give a board game to a non-board gamer, don't. And I know that's not a popular opinion, but I kind of feel like that Christmas season with so much going on and people getting other shiny presents that they really, really wanted, that board games, which are something a non-board gamer might not have thought of or particularly wanted, is just going to go whoop. So it may not be the best time. It might be a good time to introduce a non-board gamer to board games, as in there's going to be gatherings of friends and family for various holiday things, and bringing a small card game or board game or party game or something like that might be a good way to introduce them to it. But as a present, it seems a little risky to me. Now, if it's someone you've already played games with a little bit and they are board game curious, they want to get into it more, then maybe consider some small, light game. But if you must give a game to someone who is not a board gamer, I would say it should be, you should research the game really well. You should, it should be a game that you've played, that you actually play, so that you'll have a really good idea that it's something that they would want. And you should be prepared to teach them the game. And you should offer to play the game with them and show them how it plays. And if they never play the game, or they don't keep the game, or they never mention the board game ever again, don't ask. And be okay with them just not being thrilled out of their mind about the present that you spent a long time thinking about and considering and very, very carefully chose just for them. Just be okay with it and let it go. So now we get to games for people who play games. And I will kind of return to that non-gamer thing a little bit toward the end, because I do have a couple of other thoughts on that. But now let's just talk about things for gamers. Get something that they will like or want. That should be obvious. And not something necessarily that you like. And I mean, this is kind of a standard rule for all holiday gift giving in general, or birthday present giving in general. Get something they will like, not necessarily something you will like. And it is, I'm saying this even though it should be obvious, because this is a rule that is broken over and over and over again, especially at Christmas time. So, and I mean, I know you want them to like the present, but you just got to really try to purge that I want them to like this game from your mind, and really focus on what they would actually like. So anyhow, you can also give gamers, and this may be the smarter way to go, some board game adjacent stuff. And a lot of this is going to be talking about that. dice tray. A nice dice tray. Wood, felt, big. See? Big. Bigger than my head. I got this for Robert a couple of years ago because his dice rolls are like infamously wild. I mean, when he lets go of the dice, not only does he roll ones when the game requires for you to do well rolling high numbers, or roll sixes if the game requires you to do well if you roll low numbers. I mean, it's like whatever you need, he won't roll that. But not only that, but when he lets go of the dice, there's no telling where he could go. I mean, dice, he's actually bounced dice out of this dice tray and across the room. But if you have somebody who tends to roll dice off the table and you're scrambling to get to it before the dogs do or before the cat bats it into the next county or something, then perhaps a really nice dice tray would be a good thing to get them. Or possibly a dice tower, which we don't have, but I do have a Yahtzee shaker thingy. Really nice with a lid and everything that I got for Yahtzee. And that might be a dice shaker thingy, might be another thing. And I forgot to bring it to the table. But there are other kinds of dice trays you can get them. A little bit less expensive here, but this is also horribly practical. And you're going like, this is a flat piece. It doesn't look like a dice tray. It snaps together. And makes a dice tray. It is smaller than that one, but still you can find them online or maybe even at your local game store, depending upon how big their selection of dice trays are. You snap the corners together, and this one has several inches across from point to point. So it's actually a pretty good size here. It's not one of, there are some that are smaller than this, but the great thing about this is that it does flat, so you can just like slide it in on your game shelf or whatever. And also it means you can take it with you if you're taking a game somewhere. Like if you're taking a game somewhere that is a dice chucking game and you want to make sure that your game comes home with all of the dice and the dice don't end up in the next room. This is like, it folds flat, it takes up less room than the game you're taking. So that is also, particularly if you have someone in your group or your family or friends or whatever that likes to take games to the board game store for local board game store for game night, or you're back and forth out of each other's houses playing games, or family or whatever. Or it's just kind of a nice inexpensive option for a dice tray for someone who maybe doesn't take games places but someday might. You just never know. So dice tray. Also, these are a big hit. Every time I take them somewhere, somebody at the table comments on them. And that are bit bowls or bit bowls. They come in different sizes. Be sure that you look at what size it's going to be when it is put together. Because the size can vary, and I've got some games that I definitely want a larger bit bowl to hold the bits, either because the bits are big or because there's just so very many of them. Like there's some games that have coins and it's like, and I've got like a lap full of coins, so I want a big bit bowl. You see, there we go. See, this is what it looks like. And I chose green, which matches my shirt and does not show up on the screen. So I'll hold it up here. This is what it looks like. You have, this is like the little fastener. There is a little button there and there's a hole. You put the button through the hole. Very easy to do. And they unsnap. The great thing about this, it stores flat. Again, does not take up much room on your shelves or with your game stuff. Comes in assorted colors. And depending upon what vendor you get them from, it will, like I said, size will vary, colors will vary. I've got this very large set here that is for bigger bits. It fastens together the same way, just as quickly, maybe even more quickly. It seemed like I had trouble snapping them all together the very first time, but the more I use them, the easier they snap together, and they don't pop apart or anything. There's like a little lip around the button thing. And that will show you the bowl. It is a good size. See, 2 hands, 1 hand here. It's a good size bowl, but look for, if you're buying this online or if you're getting in a store, check and see what size it makes up to, because that can make a difference as to how useful it is to you or the gamer you're buying it for. But they fold flat. You can snap them together in nothing flat. I mean, just like seconds. And you can carry, I mean, look at this. They're so thin. I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 6 big ones and 1 little one, and the stack is this wide. So, I mean, they take up almost no space in terms of all of your game junk. And they travel really well. Same thing with the dice tray. You just slide them in flat and they can go wherever you go. And that's also really handy if you like to take your games to your local game store, or if you thought about taking your games to the local game store and you're going like, well, gee, yeah, but it's got all of these different bits, and it's like, and things could get lost, and I would worry about that. If you're that kind of person that's just going like, I don't want to take my games anywhere because I don't want piles of bits getting knocked off the table and forgotten and lost, bit bowls will help with that. I won't guarantee that you'll never lose a piece, but it sure makes it a lot likely that something will fall off the table. And also, if your board gamer is truly the board gamer who has everything, then you could get them this. You may see me drink out of these Meeple mugs a number of times. I've got this one with a yellow background. I got another one with a purple background. Sometimes Robert drinks out of the yellow one and I drink out of the purple one, or vice versa. We don't have assigned mugs in this house. But I got these from the Watch It Played store. YouTube channel, Watch It Played. You're probably very familiar with it, having watched Rodney Smith's videos. It's not Watch It Play branded anywhere on it. It just has their little logo. And you can get different colors. If the board gamer in your life or in your game group truly has everything and you're just stuck on what to get them, then ordering some mugs from the Watch It Played store to give to the board gamers would be a nice, fun board game adjacent sort of present. And you can choose different colors, maybe get their favorite player color if they always play yellow or red or whatever. That's a thought. And there are other things. Let me see here. Other ideas I had. For gamers that you've recently met or don't know very well, maybe some button shy games. Here is, for an example, a small stack of button shy games that kind of live on the corner of our dining room table, the far corner that we never use for anything except stacks of button shy games and other games that might go out the door with us. These games, button shy has a lot of solo games, and if you know someone who lives with someone that does not play board games or someone who is single, then maybe one of their solo games. Numbsters is very addictive, but I think it's out of print right now. There are a number of solo games from Button Shy, and all of Button Shy games I played are all varying degrees of good. Sometimes I like some more than others, but that's like any board game, personal preference. Right now we're playing Stew obsessively, which is a 2-player bluffing game. But possibly the best game Button Shy has done is Revolver Noir, which may not be for everyone because essentially you're playing 2 players moving through a room, taking shots at each other, pot shots at each other, and setting traps until one wins. Oh, yes, I got an extra copy of it because if you have 2 copies, you can play with 4 players, which we haven't done yet, but I'm looking forward to. Tides has a nice beachy theme, see? That's also a 2-player game. Arcane Bakery Clash is a little bit more combative, but very fun. Oh, lava cake. Yeah, it requires a couple of little tokens to mark things on the cards. Why I Otter is a 2-person trick-taking game. If you know somebody who likes trick-taking games, these games, oh, and Death Valley has some of the prettiest artwork. I love the artwork on this. I got this because of the artwork. And it's also a two-player game, but has a solo mode. A number of two-player games also have a solo mode or have an expansion with a solo mode. Potions Class, this is kind of Harry Potter-esque. In that you are trying to not explode your cauldron. But yeah, button shy games, they're good for stocking stuffers or for gamers that you maybe don't know all that well, like people you meet at the game store or whatever, and you kind of want to maybe get them something for Christmas, but it's kind of awkward and you don't know them well enough to get them something. You could get them a button shy game. It's an idea. Anyhow, if you know a couple who are both gamers, then you might consider getting them a two-player game that they don't already have, or perhaps a two-player game that they have and get like a different version of it. Patchwork. If they like Patchwork, Patchwork comes in a number of different versions, including a Christmas version. The Christmas edition of Patchwork comes with, I don't know if I left the cookie cutter in here or if I put it with my other cookie cutters. I put it with my other cookie cutters, so I can't show you. Anyway, the Christmas version of Patchwork, everything looks like presents with ribbons, and I like the color scheme of this, but it comes with a polyomino cookie cutter, which would make it kind of special and gifty, even if they already have Patchwork. I'm going to make gingerbread polyominoes this year. I say that every year, and I always end up with gingerbread men because I forget where I put the polyomino cookie cutter. But since the Great Kitchen reorganization, I think I can lay hands on it because it will be with the cookie cutters. Okay, so what else? Oh, yes. For other RPG gamers, this would, if you're part of an RPG game group, a portable dice tray, that would be a good gift for them if they do not already have one. But also, I've gotten some of these too, because I was thinking of friends coming over to the house and me teaching them RPGs, giving them a taste of it, because we have enjoyed it a lot since we've gotten into it this year. But you can buy sets. You can buy sets that are sets of dice that come with dice bags with various things on them. See, and it's like an RPG set of dice. And with various sets of different colored dice in various bags with things on them, and those make nice little gifties and stocking stuffers for people in your game group or people that you don't know very well. A nice set of dice is, particularly if you know someone who plays RPGs, is always kind of a good present because based upon what I've seen since we started playing RPGs, people who play RPGs are little dice goblins, or perhaps dice dragons, considering the size of their hoard. But, oh, whoa. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention for people who play RPGs. Most of the people that we run into when we play RPGs at the game store have this. This is the cover. I got one with a cover because it was on sale, so it was as cheap as the one without the cover. This is a boogie board. This is the Boogie Board Jot, which I would recommend because not all of them have replaceable batteries, and this does. It's about $20 on Amazon. It comes with a stylus. You can get it in different colors. I just chose yellow, and I chose one that had a built-in cover because the one with the cover was on sale for the same amount as the one without the cover. So what you do is you can write on it. See, I'm just scribbling on it here, but you can write on it. It writes really well. And then you just push the button up here, and that erases it. Most of the people in my RPG group have this, some version or edition of it. I think we're the only ones that got one with a cover on it. Most of it is just like the plain Jot or one of the other versions of it, because they use it to make notes, because RPG games are pencil and paper games where you're like writing things down as you go through the scenario. You need to be able to keep track of certain things, but these are not things that you need to keep permanent track of. You can like update your character sheets and do other things like that at your leisure, but there are certain things that you may need to make notes of about information that you get or things that happen in the game, how much ammunition you've used, or some information about the scenario that you're given at the beginning of it. So there are certain things that you may want to jot down what your hit points are or resolve points or whatever, to just kind of keep temporary track of that. And then at the end of the session, you can update your whatever, your character sheets, or if you need to, and then just clear out the board by punching the button. It is essentially just a piece of paper. You can use an app to do a thing with it where you can like turn it into some kind of a document or something, but I've never done that. I just use it. I use it around the house just to like jot down things to do or to track stuff like that. My little elf hat is sliding off here. Or it comes with magnets on the back, so you could like put it by the phone to jot down phone notes if you've got a landline, or tack it onto the fridge so that people can in the household can make notes on stuff. It's not, all in all, it's not a bad Christmas present even for non-gamers, though it is not game related for non-gamers. But yeah, this is very popular with our RPG group for making notes as we're going through things. And I wanted to mention that if you're getting games for gamers or non-gamers, something that I wanted to mention is consider the physical limitations of who you're getting the game for. This is something I'm kind of aware of because, as some of you know, I had hand injury, hands, plural, injury a couple of years ago. If you have not had any hand injuries or any arthritic problems and something like that, you use your hands and you just don't think about it. But I can guarantee you, if something happens to one of your hands, suddenly you're going to become very, very aware of just how difficult the world becomes if your hands do not work perfectly. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Some people have arthritis in their hands. I now have a little bit of arthritis in my finger joints as a result of the injury because it did enough damage to the joints. But some people have arthritis in their hands and you may not notice it because, you know, they seem to be doing okay. But grandma should not be given a dexterity game if she has arthritis in her hands. I mean, I shouldn't have to tell you that, but nevertheless, we take for granted the things that we can do perfectly, and we don't always stop and think about the fact that some people may have a little bit more difficulty. And here's the thing. Board games have pieces. They have a lot of small pieces. There are so many board games that have so many small pieces. And if your hands do not work perfectly, then that game becomes just a teeny tiny bit more difficult. I mean, Cloud City is not a dexterity game, but you have to have manual dexterity to put those little pieces, the cross pieces, on there. So, I mean, and then you're putting games on the board. Some people may have Parkinson's or they may have essential tremor. And I mean, maybe it's not so much that they can't do stuff and you don't maybe notice it very much, but then when you get to putting little pieces on the game board or fiddling with little pieces, you got to stop and think, is this person going to be able to put that on the board without knocking other pieces over? Is this going to be something that's going to be a problem for them? Are they going to be bothered because they can't put things and manipulate things on the board just as perfectly and precisely and smoothly as other people? You need to kind of think about this. I mean, it's something, there are a lot of things that people that don't have any physical limitations take for granted. And you have friends that may have physical limitations and you've adjusted to it, and you don't even think about it anymore. But it might be something that they are aware of or self-conscious about, particularly in a game space where there are a lot of pieces that they've got to handle, picking them up and putting them down. When I was doing rehab for my hands, a lot of the stuff I did was picking things up and putting them down and moving them from hand to hand and moving them in my hands and like getting a handful of something and manipulating it into my hand to lay it down precisely. So yeah, if you have arthritis or any injury or any tremor or anybody that does, you need to be a little aware of the fact that these games have pieces. They got lots of little pieces, and maybe start looking at games. If you're going to give them a game, particularly if they have a problem that's going to be progressive. Parkinson's is progressive. Arthritis is certainly not going to get any better, and you can probably bet on it getting a bit worse as the person ages. So you need to kind of keep that in mind. I gave some friends of mine codename Duets because one of them tremors. And you don't have to manipulate any pieces. If you've got one person that has hands that work perfectly, they can handle the cards and the layout. And so the other person can play the game with them. And the fact that they've got a bit of a tremor is not going to make any difference in gameplay and in the enjoyability of the game, because they're not going to be manipulating things or picking things up and putting them down. The other person can do the layout, and all they have to do is identify the card. So that's something to keep in mind. You just need to be aware that people may have more problems with games than you do, which also brings me to problems with games. More get problems with games than you have. If you're getting a game for someone, you need to kind of think about the games that you have played with them. And if they have tanked at every social deduction game that you've ever played with them, maybe getting them a social deduction game, even though it's a small box game and is relatively inexpensive or whatever, may not be the best choice. On the other hand, if they are a fiend at worker placement, then maybe you should think about that. Think about the kind of games that they really like and that they're really good at. Because the idea here, when you're giving someone, whether they're a gamer or a non-gamer, a game, is to give them something that they will like. Not necessarily that is a good game. Now, it should be a certain level of good, but a game that they will like. So don't just look at somebody's top 10 list and pick a game that you know is an excellent game and that you enjoy playing. Think about the games that they like to play. Think about the kind of person they are. Think about what they've done really well at and what they've done not so well at. Think about how much they've groused about certain things in certain games. You want to lean into their comfort zone. You want to give them something that they're going to be delighted with when they play it. So, you don't have to go for the best game. What you're doing here is you can it doesn't matter if it's a good game, if it's a game that they're not going to like. So there are games that are fairly light, and maybe you really like heavy games, but are they going to like it? It doesn't really matter if you kind of think, wow, this game is sure, it's fun, but there's really nothing to it. If you feel that way about a game, fine, good. You don't need to have that game in your collection. But what are they going to like? What game are they going to find is going to be fun? If they like light, random small box games, give them a dice checking game like Spots. Although there's a little bit of strategy in spots. You got to think about what you're doing a little bit, or you could get into trouble very quickly. But I mean, it's all about what the person you're giving the thing to will like. Whether or not they will like bit bowls that can snap together. If you've got somebody that just like grouses about every single thing they have to do to set up a game every time they set up a game, I don't know, snap together bit bowls might not be the best choice, because that's one more thing you have to do before you set up the game. You know, you've got to snap together the bit bowls. So, I mean, if you've got somebody that just about every single little thing they have to do to set up, then you don't want to give them one more thing to set up. Give them stackable bit bowls. On the other hand, if you've got somebody that just loves going to gaming conventions and that kind of thing, then yeah, maybe you should get them something that folds flat and snaps together, like bit bowls or portable dice trays. So you got to give it a little bit of thought, but I think I've given you some ideas to think about here a little bit. I hope I've been at least marginally helpful or entertaining. But it's tough buying game stuff for gamers, and even tougher getting stuff for non-board gamers. If you're going to get something for a non-board gamer, if you absolutely positively have to, play the game with them. Which, I mean, if you're giving a 2-player game to a couple, I don't know how you do that. That's a little awkward, but, you know, we didn't manage to play the game beforehand with the couple that we gave a 2-player game to. So if you can't play you need to be able to do a teach. You need to definitely interact with them with the game, or it's going to fall flat, despite your best intentions. But you really should be good intentioned about it. It's not about what you want to give them. I hope you have a happy holiday season, whatever holiday that you celebrate. And I will be back next week with like more real game stuff. It's been a lot of fun chatting about game stuff with you and gifty things, because we're all thinking about gifty things. You know we are. I'll see you next week around the table. Bye.